as the Pac-12 burns. Yes, we can go back to that. I am amazed. I want to start with Memphis because I am amazed by this. And we had talked about Memphis speaking of humility, we talked about Memphis not having all that much interest in the Pac-12, and you guys roasted me for that. Hey, Tulane, USF, yup. Memphis was hesitant the entire time. We had this discussion on the show.
Right.
Memphis athletic director Ted Scott got up in front of the assembled media and talked about my awesomeness yesterday.
If y'all haven't seen the latest reports of what's going on between the Mountain West and the Pac-6, 7 right now, this is a fluid situation, right? So that's...
Bro,
hey, man,
chill, dude,
look,
chill.
It's not the Pac-12.
Monty.
It's the Pac-6, 7. And at this point, who are we kidding? It's like the Pac-4.
Pac-10.
I mean, nobody wanted Fresno State. Different day. Anyway, that's how this started. And that's just the beginning.
If y'all haven't seen the latest reports of what's going on between the Mountain West and the Pac-6, 7 right now, this is a fluid situation, right? So that's the other thing. When we talk about the decision that was made by the University of Memphis to not join the Pac, as I like to call them right now at this time, that was not a binary decision. That was not a, no, we're not ever going anywhere. That was based on the offer that was presented in front of us, that we're not taking that offer because we don't think less of ourselves. And I came here for a reason. You heard me in the press conference. You've heard me in any interview I've done. I'm bullish on Memphis's future. And so I think sometimes we get enamored by the new and we want to take a bad deal. And that deal was not a good deal for the University of Memphis. It certainly wasn't a good deal for our athletic department. And most importantly, it was a really, really bad deal for our Olympic sports.
I mean, that's about as plainly spoken as you can be.
Yeah, I mean, blunt would be a perfect word to describe it.
And we've talked about this repeatedly, and I don't know how much more we can delve into it. But again, I say for everybody that believes that the Pac-12 is somehow this amazing destination that is the land of prosperity for the G5, I will just continue to tell you that's just not the case. And you look at Memphis and you look at the way that Memphis is operating and what Ted Scott is saying here, he basically is telling you it didn't make sense financially. It did not make sense to put our Olympic sports through unbelievably difficult travel scenarios. There's nothing that is better in the Pac-12 than we have in the AAC. And I think that's the overwhelming conversation for all of these universities that are looking at joining the Pac-12 or joining the Mountain West. The Sac State situation that so many people lost their minds over yesterday because I said Sac State is a legitimate option for Pac-12 expansion. And then what does Sac State announce? Hey, we're putting millions of dollars into our football infrastructure for one singular purpose, to join the Pac-12. It is as clear as it can be. It is a win for some and an absolute loss for others like Memphis. It is a win, unequivocally, inarguably, for Sac State to become a member of the Pac-12. That is a win, I think, all the way around. For the Pac-12, for Sac State, they've got the money. Yes, green light. For Memphis to fly all of its Olympic sports, stick and ball sports, track and field, swimming, you name it, to fly all those sports across the country most of the season just doesn't make any sense. To pay the human toll, tutors, more assistant athletic directors, more infrastructure, more compliance, more coaching, just the human cost financially makes no sense for schools like USF, Memphis, and to a large extent Tulane. It just doesn't make any sense. So when we're looking at who the legitimate options for Pac-12 expansion are, I will stand on business again and tell you Memphis was never seriously considering joining the Pac-12. I can only say that so clearly. And then you look at this situation in the Mountain West and you ask yourself, well, why geographically does the Mountain West work better than the Pac-12? I can give you two simple answers: Corvallis, Oregon, and Spokane, Washington, because they're not easy destinations to get to. And then you move to Logan, Utah, and you say to yourself, well, if I'm flying from Memphis, Tennessee, how difficult is it to get to Corvallis? Difficult. It's not much easier to get to Logan, Utah. So it doesn't logistically make sense. Now, if I am in the Mountain West, and let's say that I am in DeKalb, Illinois, where Northern Illinois is, it's a heck of a lot easier to get to Colorado to play, Air Force, to get to the Colorado Springs to play Air Force. It's a lot easier to, get to Las Vegas. Easy peasy, dude. 2-hour flight. If that. That's why it makes a lot more sense if you're in San Marcos, Texas, to fly to Las Vegas, to fly to the footprint that is the Mountain West. Jake, I think it is a no-brainer that the Mountain West is going to have an easier sales pitch than the Pac-12 for expansion.
Absolutely. And I think that, the other part of the conversation is ethics and morals and, who's doing business more properly. And I think that there's a lot of questions around like, hey, you're now suing the Mountain West. Like, we're not sure that we want to be part of that whole situation. Like, I think that the total picture, whether it's geographics, the suit itself and the Pac-12's reputation and image right now in the market, like you're just not in a great place with all of these factors if you're the Pac-12. And so for me, I think, any team that's in the Midwest or certainly on the East Coast is going to look at this and say, yeah, is it actually better? Are we going to make more money, or do we have more opportunity, or what's the thing that's going to put us over the top to make this make sense? Because, if we're going to do this, just like he said, we're going to have to put our staff and our kids and our equipment and everything kind of through the ringer to make this happen. So if we're going to do that and have that kind of ask, we got to make sure that it's well worth our time. And unfortunately, right now, it's not worth people's time. And I think that's why you get ADs like Ted Scott saying like, hey, it's not a good deal. It's a bad deal. Like, it doesn't make sense for whether you're Memphis or anybody else. It doesn't make sense to be, partaking in this. And so for me, it doesn't surprise me that schools have turned this opportunity down. What surprises me is folks like Ted Scott, who are in his position, having the candor and the bluntness and speaking so freely. And I would say borderline gray area disrespectfully about the Pac. Like, when you joke about like, hey, it's the Pac 5, 6, 7, like that's unnecessary. You don't really need to be saying it like that.
Oh, so he's taking a shot. There's no question about that.
Yeah. So like, I just feel like it's this whole thing where the opportunity itself is not great. There's not a clear reason why you want to do it. Now we have guys who are in the room making these decisions, going on video saying, hey, it's a bad deal. And that's why we didn't do it. And that's just not a great look.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where you go with it. And I think, again, I point to Texas State, and I think Texas State is absolutely the right place to go. I think if I'm the Mountain West, Texas State, UTEP, New Mexico, Northern Illinois, and Toledo in the MAC are two very good options. I think, obviously, we talked about this at nauseum really all week long. The state of Texas is an incredibly important market when it comes to Pac-12 and Mountain West expansion. I think you have to have a foothold in the state of Texas. It is vital. The football there is too good. The assets there, the resources there, there's simply too much there for you to ignore it. And I think if you are also going to expand your footprint, if you are the Mountain West, does it make sense to go west? I don't think it does. But does it make sense to go to the Midwest and add another time zone? It does. So if you go to DeKalb, Illinois for Northern Illinois, if you're going anywhere in the state of Texas, I think all of that makes sense. But again, I think the big part of this conversation is Memphis with some very harsh words for the Pac-12. And I agree with you. I think he's taken a shot when he says the Pac 6 or 7. He's taken a shot at the Pac-12.
Yeah, certainly. And I just think that there's not a lot of, respect there. And this is kind of what we've talked about over the last week. Like when you operate the way the Pac has operated, I think that you bring some of this negative connotation towards yourself. You bring, you kind of leave a bad taste in people's mouths when you sit here and, because again, not to be repetitive, but you entered into a scheduling alliance with the Mountain West that then led to you poaching their teams. And I understand, and I don't even hide from the fact that it's a natural sort of progression in college football for, power conferences or like typical conferences that we know to try and go into the G5 and get their best brands. But this is different because that's not even who the Pac is anymore.
Yeah.
This is you just basically saying, hey, like we're gonna take all your schools and basically decimate you and try to create the best G5, and basically just having no care or concern for your colleagues in the industry. I mean, it's certainly not great to just be out here trying to decimate another conference. And yes, I do think that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to force the Mountain West to fold so that you can kind of take that spot. And that's not, I'm telling you, that is not a great way to go about it.
Yeah, I don't know what you do with it. I don't. Calford has given us $20 to say a new microphone for Monty. What am I missing? He also says, morning, Monty, can you please fix your mic? What's wrong with my microphone?
No, unplug and plug back in. I mean, I don't know.
I don't
know. Is it not plugged in all or something?
No, I don't know.
Weird.
Somebody, if anybody would like to explain that, that's great. Feel free. Calford also gives us 20 Monty Show membership.
Appreciate you, bro.
Thank you, Calford. Appreciate that. Ukrainian mail order bride industry is booming.
Now, this dude right here is becoming a daily provider on the show. This is somebody who is building a bit of a brand here, right? He's got a great name. He's commenting every day. Now he's tipping every day.
What if it really is Zelensky? Because he's in the country.
Yeah.
If the Pac-12 can get 3 of these 5 schools, Texas State, North Texas, UTEP, New Mexico State, add Gonzaga and Grand Canyon as non-football members, that gets them to 10-12 and a win for the Pac. Well, I don't disagree with that.
Right.
I mean, if the Pac-12 adds, I think your point is very well taken about if you add Gonzaga and Grand Canyon as basketball onlys or as non-football, because they both have prolific athletic departments.
Gonzaga.
I think that's a huge win.
Yeah.
I would agree with that 100%.
Well, and it's interesting too, like this is yet another dynamic between these two conferences, right? Because we've been telling you, for I don't know what, a week, right? I mean, I'd have to go back and look, but we told you Texas State was going to be a target. And now we're in this situation where it's come out. The national media is now reporting that the Mountain West is, targeting Texas State, and they're looking to add Texas State. And so the question to me becomes, okay, if you're the Pac, are you not sitting here trying to go after the Mountain West targets now? Like, are you not just fully invested in, hey, we're going to go after anything the Mountain West is going after? Because you've already taken their best brands, and now you're trying to get to 8 teams here. Like, like that to me seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So some clarity here. Your mic is making a crackling sound.
Oh,
I don't know what that could be.
That's weird.
Everything
seems fine here.
Yeah, it's at the same level. Is that better? How's that? That's not better. That's turned off. I don't know. It is part of Monty's Adunze disrespect. It could be. It is on your end, Jim. Well, that's not good. I don't know. Mike sounds fuzzy as hell. Lots of crackling, Monty.
So weird. Like, so when you do a show, there are just some days where you roll up and the mic crackles, like
for no reason,
for like literally no apparent reason, none. And so like the other day, earlier this week, and maybe it's a mixer problem. Maybe our mixer's taking a dump here, but there's earlier this week we had a little bit of a mixer problem. So it could be that. We're troubleshooting currently.
Yeah, who knows? I don't know.
Yeah.
I unplugged it and replugged it. I don't know if that makes it better.
Let us know if that helped.
I don't know. It's peaking. It's causing it to distort. I have no idea how that's possible that it could be peaking. It is, I don't know. I appreciate you hanging in there. Can you two share a mic, sit super close? That'd be sick. No, that would not
That would be
that
uncomfortable.
would be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And Jake Smells. The college football guy. Every time you raise your voice, you sound tinny.
Tinny.
Okay. Hey, man. I try to take my testosterone. What do you want from me? Darius, dear listeners, turn down your volume on those expensive ear pods.
That could be. That could be.
Hey, man, I do.
I will say typically this isn't a problem.
It's not. This is a problem. This is a $500 microphone.
Yeah.
You guys think we joke. When you guys tip us, all the money goes into infrastructure.
Yeah.
You're looking at thousands minimum of thousands of dollars of equipment. And there's nothing that's higher end than the mixer, the video mixer, the audio mixer, and the computer is a rocket ship.
Yeah.
So
anyway.
I apologize if we're having.
Let us know if it's improving. Let us know if our troubleshooting efforts are working.
It was the mixer and unplugging it worked. Okay, great.
See, there you go. See?
Okay.
See, turn it off, turn it on.
Sounds all good to me. Happy Friday. Please hit the like button. All right. Let's rock and roll. Talking Pac-12 expansion. What do you guys make of this Memphis comment? Because I think let's reset. Let's go back to this Memphis comment, because I think this is where we are in terms of what we do in the world now. Like, you look at Memphis athletic director Ted Scott. Is he taking a shot at the Pac-12 with this?
If y'all haven't seen the latest reports of what's going on between the Mountain West and the Pac-6, 7 right now, this is a fluid situation, right? So that's the other thing. When we talk about the decision that was made by the University of Memphis to not join the Pac, as I like to call them right now at this time, that was not a binary decision. That was not a no, we're not ever going anywhere. That was based on the offer that was presented in front of us, that we're not taking that offer because we don't think less of ourselves. And I came here for a reason. You heard me in the press conference. You've heard me in any interview I've done. I'm bullish on Memphis's future. And so I think sometimes we get enamored by the new and we want to take a bad deal. And that deal was not a good deal for the University of Memphis. It certainly wasn't a good deal for our athletic department. And most importantly, it was a really, really bad deal for our Olympic sports.
And his people attacking him, that's Memphis athletic director Ted Scott. People attacking him inside the walls at Memphis is ridiculous. This was never a good deal. And again, I just continue to reset this point. Where's the money coming from in the Pac-12? You don't know right now. Do we all think that they're going to get a TV deal and everything will be fine? I do. I think they're going to get a TV deal.
Right.
Is it going to be more money than they're making in the AAC? Probably not. Because you don't know what you're paying for. And right now, they're having trouble getting even FBS G5 school to join their league.
Yeah, and I think on the TV front, like, maybe it's not like, hey, are they going to get the same money that the AAC has? I think it actually, what we should be asking is, are they going to get enough money to justify someone leaving their current situation? Because, again, if you're making the same money in the Pac that you are in the AAC, but you're Memphis, that's just lowering profitability at that point. That's not like you would have to make more to cover up those additional costs. And so yeah, I mean, I would agree. I understand where Ted Scott's coming from, man. I agree. He took a shot. He channeled his inner red ass a little bit here. He said, hey, like, the Pac-6 or 7 or whatever we're calling them offered us a bad deal, and we're not taking a bad deal to put our students through the ringer.
But I also agree with him. I am bullish on Memphis.
Yeah, I think most people are. I think Memphis, like, most people are like, hey, Memphis is heading in the right direction.
I think Memphis belongs in a super league if that ever comes to the offering at the G5 level. I think Memphis is probably one of the first G5s into that super league. But the problem is, you can't justify adding millions and millions of dollars to your budget to travel. And I ask you again, think about the logistics of traveling a football team. You like at BYU has a whole video scheme to track their football equipment truck across the country. That's the level of logistics it takes. You're traveling a semi truck most weeks because you can't afford to fly your equipment because it's so expensive. You need a much larger aircraft. That's a charter if you're going to fly your equipment. Most college teams don't charter. Hell, WNBA teams don't charter. Think about the money that you are losing. And then you've got to worry about an NIL settlement that still hasn't been, vetted out.
Yep.
You've got to worry. Like, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. All of the expense. It's crazy to me that you as Memphis, I even say this about USF, because by all accounts, USF was in on the Pac-12.
Right.
It's crazy to me that you would want to fly from Florida to Corvallis and Spokane and San Diego.
Look at Colorado's trip this week to Florida. Like, that's not a short trip. That is a workhorse kind of trip.
And I know this is crazy, but it was brought up to me yesterday by a guy on TV I was talking to. Think about the climate change. If you are USF going to Corvallis in November, do you really want that trip when right now you are predominantly staying in your own climate? Do you really want that trip? I don't think you do. I really don't think you do. And thinking about going to Boise, if you're USF, do you want to go play in snowy Boise in November?
No,
I don't.
No, I think what you meant to say is if you're USF, do you want to go to snowy Boise and lose in November?
Yeah, because it's where you go to die.
Yeah, like,
so
come on.
I totally understand it. I can't imagine what Cal and Stanford are going through. We joke with Calford about Calamony. Imagine the money that they're spending being in the ACC. Imagine that money and trucking their equipment. And I'm pretty certain that Cal and Stanford both charter. But imagine, it's a nightmare. So I think it was probably unnecessary. I think you heard Ted Scott, the athletic director at Memphis, venting a little bit here.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Like,
and there was frustration. There's no question about that. And, I think that, look, these leaders are human beings too, man. And at some point, people get to the end of their rope with the antics and the posturing out of a conference that isn't even a conference. Like, that's the other thing that I think we can't forget. This is not a conference yet. And again, it's one of those things where you notice how you never really hear from the Big Ten and the SEC. We don't hear, there's like basically no drama. The only drama happens at the school level if there's a scandal or like if Harbaugh happens or whatever, like whatever.
Harbaugh happens.
If Penn State happens, like that's what we hear about out of the Big Ten. But you don't really hear anything out of the major conferences because that's why they're major conferences, because they have money, people are happy, they're playing football games, they're just doing business. And that's the other side of this. I think schools like USF and Memphis, and they have a good existence right now. It works. Like it's good enough for what they need right now. And they're not going to rock that boat to go to an opportunity that I do think is largely like massive question mark circled twice with a Sharpie.
Well, and if you're Memphis, USF, Tulane, I think you were assuming that the ACC was going to melt down. And when the ACC, because again, I'm telling you, I've heard repeatedly 2 times this week, Florida State is not angling to leave the ACC anymore. Mm-hmm. They are angling to get the deal that was announced in the Mountain West yesterday, which was that UNLV is getting a lion's share of the revenue and everybody else is going to take a mid-level share.
Right.
That's what Florida State's trying to get. And ultimately, if this equity or the what you've earned system, hey, you went to a bowl game, you get a larger share. You went to the college football playoff, you get a larger share. When you pay people for performance, that's where you're going to start going to in college sports, in my opinion. And in the ACC, I think they're probably going to be the first one to do that. And if that's the win for Florida State and Clemson, hey, you did your job. But I don't think you're looking at the ACC melting down anymore, mainly because there's no smoking gun. They don't have a tool. They don't have a way, a lever to pull to get out of that grant of rights. So I think Memphis, Tulane, USF, they really needed the ACC to melt down so that they could all come together and build something different and better. Essentially what the Pac-12 is trying to do, but doesn't have the ability, doesn't have the partnerships, doesn't have the friendships in place to do it.
Yep.
And I think if the ACC had melted down, well, yeah, absolutely, you're going to form a conference with Wake Forest and Georgia Tech and the also rants. Because if you do the math, obviously Duke, Carolina, Clemson, Florida State are probably going to have homes in different places. Like, okay, great. But this is the same mathematics that we talked about the other day with Gonzaga.
Yep.
Why has Gonzaga never accepted that Big 12 invitation that we broke the news on?
Money.
And then everybody ran with it. Well, because it doesn't make a lot of sense for them to give up an auto bid into the NCAA tournament. It just does not.
Yeah, it's a money-making machine they've got set up.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
You're in the NCAA tournament every single year. No doubt. If you join the Pac-12, you're in the NCAA tournament every single year. Even in the group that you have there, it's you and San Diego State. And who else? Of all the schools being mentioned, does UTEP scare you out of joining that conference because you'll lose an auto bid?
No.
To the NCAA tournament if you're Gonzaga? No, it doesn't. So for me, I think Gonzaga is doing the math. It doesn't make sense to join a power conference because you're not going to go to the if Gonzaga, as I said the other day, if Gonzaga joins the Big 12, who among us believes they're going to remain a national powerhouse? Because I do not. You're looking at a league that is as deep as any league that I think we've ever seen. And you're going to put Gonzaga, a small market in Spokane, that dominates the WCC. You're going to put them in that league, and you're going to think that they're just going to, who are you, Houston? They're not going to do what Houston did in the Big 12. It makes zero financial sense for Gonzaga, even with a larger media contract, to join the Big 12.
Yeah.
It makes all the sense in the world if they get more media money to join the Pac-12.
Certainly. And by the way, we haven't even brought up the prospect of expanding the tournament yet, and what that'll do to shares and valuations. And so if you're Gonzaga, those are all things you're considering in a potential move or staying. And I agree. It makes perfect sense. And you understand why they've had an open invitation to the Big 12 for however long it's been now, a year and a half or 2 years. But you also understand why they haven't taken it. And again, I sit here every day that goes by as we talk about this Pac-12 expansion rebirth situation. And I sit here and say, like, I don't feel like there's a thing here yet where you're like, hey, I got to be a part of this. Hey, I'm Gonzaga. I've got to be a part of that conference. Or, hey, I'm this school. I'm USF, man. Yeah, we got to fly across the country, but, man, I really want to be a part of that. And that would be really good for X, Y, and Z.
It's interesting you bring that up because if you follow me on the old tweet machine, X. The Monty Show, MONTY, the Monty Show, it must have been 30 or 40 mentions yesterday. Read through our comment section yesterday. You guys don't know what you're talking about. The Pac-12's in a way better spot. In all seriousness, in the comment section, let's get into it. Do you believe, with what we know now about the Mountain West, and let's do Mountain West versus Pac-12, do you believe, Dion, that the Pac-12 is in a far better situation than the Mountain West?
Do you believe?
Because I do not. My opinion is they are not. Do you guys understand the Mountain West and their remaining members all signed an extension of their grant of rights to 2031?
And look how fast they did that.
To 2031. UNLV Air Force to 2031. The Pac-12 does not have that. They don't have a TV deal. They don't have good relationships with TV partners. And they don't have membership. They don't, in my opinion, they don't have membership that moves Memphis to join that conference. So again, I ask, if you are Texas State, if you are the schools in the MAC, Northern Illinois, and you have the Mountain West call you and you have the Pac-12 call you, I think you're in a far better position by joining the Mountain West. It's going to be cheaper. The travel's going to be easier. It's going to be shorter. It's going to be less expensive. You're going to have more stability because you have a grant of rights with its existing members through 2031.
Right.
Now, do you have San Diego State? You don't. Do you have Boise State? You don't. I totally agree. Yeah, it's rough. But what are you selling Northern Illinois on? Hey, come on, you can be the powerhouse of football in this conference. The MAC's great. How about Gloria Nevarez? Speaking of the MAC, did you see what she did yesterday? She sent written notice to the MAC conference commissioner. Hey, we're going to pursue Northern Illinois and Toledo. We want you to know.
So wait, you mean that you can actually, do it in a respectful manner? You don't, why isn't Gloria just poaching those teams?
And I, again, go back to the point. She's got a TV contract in the Mountain West through 2026. She's got a stellar, strong relationship with both Fox and CBS Sports, who are her two biggest partners. She's probably going to land, and let's be conservative on a TV deal, $7 million a year. Let's say that she gets $7 million a year. They're currently making $4 million a year in the Mountain West, if my recollection is correct.
Right.
Let's say, because she's got a grant of rights, which basically is, hey, I give you my media rights for all of my home games. Go ahead and negotiate a TV contract with somebody. So she's got permission to go and sell the rights of all the home games in the conference. Let's say she gets $7 million. Not too high, not too low, right in the middle, $7 million. And you're Northern Illinois. How are you going to take the Pac-12 over $7 million? And you're probably going to be in a conference championship game on a regular basis.
Great question.
It's going to be really tough to say no to that. Really tough to say no to that. And you look at the quality difference, because this matters as well. And I know that you guys disagree with this because I've said it this week as well. Gloria Nevarez is a selling feature in the Mountain West because she's not running around. And this is the other thing. And I know Pac-12 homers that now, thanks to guy over here,
you're a homer is the first part.
Yeah, people saying, well, I'm a Pac-12 homer. Yeah, Pac-12 homers, I get it. You don't have a commissioner that people have great, deep, long relationships with. Gloria Nevarez is likable. She's professional. She sends letters and communication to other conferences to say, hey, I'm contacting Northern Illinois and Toledo. She's not raiding. She's not showing up in the middle of the night.
Yep.
She's a selling feature.
And she's not shaking your hand and then stabbing you in the back.
And she's not suing people.
Yeah.
So
I'm telling you, it's not a good look.
I think the Pac-12, and a lot of people asked me yesterday, why do you hate the Pac-12? I don't hate the Pac-12. I'm not emotionally invested in it. But what I can tell you is the people that I talk to around college football and in the media landscape all say the exact same thing. The Pac-12 is not somebody you want to do business with, and they certainly are not somebody that you can trust. I've heard that on repeated phone calls. Yeah, I don't trust them. It's Florida State. Yeah. It's the exact same conversation people have about Florida State.
Because again, it might be different action, but look at the way they're going about it. That they're again, it's eerily similar. I mean, now we're suing the Mountain West, and this is after you took their teams in the middle of the night and you didn't do it the right way, and you shook hands and then wanted to play hardball over exit fees, and that it's just not the right way to go about it. And people always say, oh, well, that's dumb. Like, business is business, whatever. You're just mad the Mountain West lost. I'm not a Mountain West fan, but what I can tell you is when you're doing business, like Like, I'm telling you, the Pac-12 is building a reputation for itself, which I guess it already had, frankly, before the meltdown happened. But you're just not, you don't do business well. You don't understand how to have the conversation and frame the conversation the right way. Because again, if you had framed the conversation initially as, hey, like we got to get back to 8 teams, right? Like obviously scheduling alliance, and then we want to merge with the Mountain West. Once the exit fee conversation started going south, then there should have been written notice provided. There should have been, hey, okay, we understand we can't come to terms on the exit fees. So here's written notice that this is what we're gonna go ahead and do.
And I would understand if the Mountain West, like think back to how the Pac-12 came apart. I would understand if you didn't have a grant of rights, if the conference was melting down, I would totally understand that. If you had no TV deal, if you were in the same position the Pac-12 was when the Pac-12 melted down and you were losing members, okay, I totally understand why the Pac-12 would be taking San Diego State and trying to get essentially your entire membership. But there was a grant of rights in place. There was a contract in place. It's a bad look. So I think when you look at where Gloria Nevarez is now, she's in a very vulnerable spot. The Mountain West is very vulnerable. That's why they have to be proactive and aggressive right now. And I think she's doing a good job of that.
But I also think they have momentum though, too, off of this, the extension and like,
and UNLV not leaving.
Yeah. There's UNLV a little bit of momentum there.
Yeah. And everybody's signing the extended grant of rights for sure. And so again, I go back to this question of who's in a better spot. I think it's really close. I don't think that the Mountain West is in a better position, but they're not in a worse position than the Pac-12.
I would give a slight edge to the Mountain West, and I only give them that edge because they're an established conference already, right? Like you were a conference 10 minutes ago, and they took those teams, and that now puts you in a position where you have to go and back.
Yeah.
So like you said, hey, they've already got the TV contract. They've already got a lot of these things. It's clear that the members that are still in the conference are all on the same page and all in alignment and moving forward together. So like you've got all your sheep in the conference, if you will, moving in the right direction. And now all you got to do is go and get a couple more, and you're right back to where you were. And that for me is why the Mountain West has a slight edge, whereas in the Pac-12, again, it's still a lot of unknown. I mean, I get it that you have commitments from these schools, but you don't have that great TV deal yet. You
swung for the fences and you missed.
Yes.
And now you've got an athletic director at Memphis coming out and saying, yeah, no, not really. The Pac-6 or 7, no, I'm good.
It's a bad deal.
You've got the AAC members releasing statements not in support of what you offered. I think that's damaging.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be very difficult to get an FBS member, a G5 member, to move conferences for you. That's the thing that I'm curious about. Who's the next big win? I'll be very curious to see what that is.
Yeah.
Because Gloria Nevarez and the Mountain West have strong TV relationships, and I think that's the single biggest selling point.
Yeah.
You need to be on TV regularly, and you're seeing that. And I also am curious, this lawsuit, again, which I think is an instrument for negotiation, the Pac-12 suing the Mountain West, it's an instrument for negotiation. I think it's nothing more than that. Because I also think, again, after talking to some really strong legal people, there's no way the Pac-12 comes out of that as a winner if it goes to a judge. So I think they're simply trying to negotiate down the penalties and the fees that are in the contract they signed.
Right.
And I think Gloria Nevarez, rightfully so, is going to have a hard line on that because it's a pretty strong position that, hey, I can give UNLV $25 to $30 million in a bonus. I mean, it's really smart business.
Yeah, and I just think that she's got everything she needs to win that argument. I mean, there's no, like, again, the ACC is precedent here. Like, you signed a contract, you both agreed to it. Nobody was under duress. And now you don't like the exit fee portion. And you're going to claim that, somehow, some way they've got it's an antitrust thing. And yeah, like, okay, dude, cool. Make your noise. bark like a dog at the wind, and then go to court and then get told no. And then,
hey, even if you save $5 million, it was worth it. Even if you net, and I should say net because this is going to cost the Pac-12 a fortune. If you net $5 million, that's worth the money.
yeah,
It's worth the effort. I don't know that you can put a price on your reputation.
I was going to say,
because I think you have damaged the Pac-12 if it's possible.
I don't even, but like,
but is it possible to further damage yourself reputationally? I think it probably is now.
I mean, it is, but I go back to this conference last year, the Pac-12 that we all knew and loved for, however long they were in existence at that point. Like, you weren't respected in a business fashion. Like, people didn't look at the Pac-12 and say, oh man, wow, that's a prolific. George Kliavkoff is just incredible. Like, people weren't saying that. People were saying, hey, like, Pac-12 After Dark is real. It's a great brand. Like they dominate that evening slot. But
they've been an embarrassment for how many, whether it's officiating, lawyers in their replay booth or not having a TV deal or a carriage deal to speak of. Like, the Pac-12's been an embarrassment.
Yeah.
And the biggest issue I have with it, you didn't have to ever be here. One, okay, you went through it and you came out on the other side of all of your membership choosing to leave in a really good spot. And then you went and did this thing. And business is business.
Mm-hmm.
I understand. You've got to survive. I understand it. I'm all good with you going and saying, hey, we're recruiting your members. They're going to stay until your grant of rights ends. I'm all good with that.
Right.
The lawsuit is where you lost me for good. When you file suit and you claim that it's a Sherman antitrust violation, like, come on. All you're trying to do here is not abide by the contract you signed.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the hard part of this. And I don't know how you recover from that, from a reputation standpoint and the ability to recruit new members that are already G5s.
Yeah, I just wouldn't want to be a part of it if I was a G5. I understand why it makes sense for those Mountain West members. They're right down the street. Okay, cool. But I just, there's not a good enough reason to do it if you're a G5 right now.
Sweet Beans TV is clearly new here. Apparently, legal experts Monty and Jake are better lawyers than the one the Pac-12 hired. Bro, we have talked to so many contract law experts on this show. And you don't have to agree with us, but just go ahead and point to what we've been wrong on.
Yeah.
And if you missed it yesterday, I'll repeat it for the new guy in the room. We reached out to, and I hate to say, we reached out to really good contract legal minds who know far more about this than we do. Because I don't know the ins and outs of the Sherman Antitrust Act. That's above my pay grade.
Right.
But what I don't know is what I don't know. So I reached out and we talked to people about this, and it's not a Sherman Antitrust Act violation. And for all the Pac-12 people who said, well, they were signed under duress, they are not arguing that they signed these contracts under duress.
It's not part of their argument.
It is not part of their argument, and it would have to be their defense. And again, I think most people agree you don't sue the way that the Pac-12 sued and write language the way that they wrote this language when you're trying to win a case. They're trying to negotiate. It's why Florida State and Clemson filed the suit with the verbiage they used. If you go back to the Pac-12's, the Pac-2 against the exiting 10 members, that was never going to be decided in court. It was all about negotiation. It was all about negotiation. They had a negotiated settlement agreed to in court.
Yeah.
Which is exactly where this is going to go, in my opinion, unless it is dismissed.
And I think if you're the Mountain West, your first priority is taking a run at getting it dismissed. That's your first priority. I wouldn't even be open to a settlement talk unless I was forced in that position.
Again, much to this person's point, already saying that Pac-12's case will get dismissed I've never said it's going to get dismissed. What I said was they only filed the lawsuit for negotiating purposes. And here's the part that guys like you don't understand. It's really hard to sue over a contract you signed and you're not arguing duress, which, hey, they had a gun to my head. I was 14 when I signed the contract. Okay, that's called duress. It's really hard to go to court to sue that you're filing a suit to undo a contract you willfully signed when you're not arguing duress. It's one of the most difficult arguments to win in all of contract law. Because duress, if you were arguing duress, duress is pretty black and white. Hey, again, gun to our head. Hey, I was high on crack cocaine and they knew it. Okay, that's duress, not in your right mind. Contract's invalid.
Yeah.
I was 14 when I signed that contract. Okay, not legally able to sign a contract, dismiss. Black and white. They're not arguing duress. They're arguing that it was a violation of interstate commerce, that the contract is unenforceable. It's one of the most difficult legal arguments to win.
Yeah. So we never said it was going to get dismissed. What we said is that the argument you're bringing is incredibly difficult to win. And there's a reason, if you think about, like, if you take a second and think about the hows and whys, why do you think they're not arguing duress? Because they don't have evidence they were under duress, so they can't argue it. Like,
and I'm here for it. I'm here. Like, listen, Sweet Beans TV. I'm here for it because we don't have a dog in the fight, and we don't act on or speak on emotion. And I think everybody who's been on this show for any amount of time understands I never speak off the top of my head, and I don't talk about things I don't know. And if I don't know something, I reach out to my sphere of influence, which I think is one of the greatest terms. And I ask questions about things that I don't know. I am not a lawyer. I do not know.
And again, for the new guy in the room, what have we been wrong about? We told you what was going to happen to FSU. How long? And I would love for the long times to chime in on this. How many times did we say Florida State's not getting out of that grant of rights? You're not coughing up $500 million in change to get out of that grant of rights, which is why you've been trying to poke holes in it.
$500 billion.
I mean, that's so much money. So you said, okay, we don't have the money, so we're going to try and poke holes in it. And what did everyone say? Oh, well, ESPN, they did nefarious business behind the scenes, and there's all this nonsense. And then what do we have? Oh,
show us the contract, because, and what Jake's referencing is the ACC has held confidential the contract between the ACC and ESPN. And so Florida State and Clemson filed a motion to have the judge order the ACC to turn over the ESPN contract. And the judge did. And there's no smoking gun.
And they happily turned it over. And there's no smoking gun, and now we're here. Like,
to wrap this up, because I do want to get to the comment section. You guys have been amazing today, as usual. The other part of this that I think you have to look at is it was explained to me by a contract lawyer who went to NYU. There's no precedent that favors the Pac-12 here. And the worst part is the precedent that will be used by the Mountain West is the Pac-12 versus the exiting 10 members of the conference.
Yeah.
So that's going to be very difficult. And the other part of this is the main reason that you sued. Why did the Pac-12 sue? To try and leverage a power play to get UNLV and Air Force, who just signed a grant of rights through 2031.
And that's what I'm saying. The timing of them signing that is no accident. Like, they just turned around and said, hey, here's the bird. We're staying in the Mountain West. Enjoy your lawsuit. Like, I'm telling you, it matters.
Yeah, she's one hell of a commissioner. I agree, Phil Benzer. Yeah, Gloria Nevarez is one hell of it. She's done a great job here.
Yes.
I think it is remarkable that we continue to see. And I think Florida State versus the ACC is something we've talked ad nauseum about on this show. You were never suing. Florida State and Clemson were never suing with the idea that they could win, because the mountain in contract law to win these cases is so steep.
Yeah.
And I look at what Florida State wants. Florida State wants more money and more revenue, and they're going to get it because they are negotiating. And what are they negotiating? An equity revenue dispersal, which means, hey, we went to a bowl game, we get more. We went to the tournament, we get more. We went to the college football playoff, we get more. Vanderbilt, think of the worst teams in the country. Vanderbilt, or who's the worst team in the Big 12 right now? Take your pick at the bottom.
Texas Tech.
Texas Tech, not the worst. Don't be a jerk. But you look at the worst teams.
No, seriously, Kansas. How about Kansas?
This year, Kansas. Or Kansas, you get nothing this year because you did nothing.
Yeah.